So good morning, good afternoon, evening to some of you. Um, okay, you know, uh, you know the deal here. So find your posture. So breathing in such a way that that helps you land here now. A kind of subtle ripple of relaxation of the exhalation. And conscious effort to release tension. Whatever tension might remain, a willingness to tolerate that. You're not responsible for experience. You're not responsible to manage and mold yourself. You're not responsible for awareness, which does itself. You're not responsible for generating insight, engineering samadhi, concentration. To the extent we're responsible for anything, we're responsible just for the seed of sincerity and willingness, the willingness to offer our heart up to the Dharma, and then trusting, having faith in the logic of the path. we drop beneath the layers of meaning into more and more simple, intimate experience of what's here, maybe the breath or the body more broadly, maybe the realm of feeling, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, maybe sound and silence, maybe the darkness behind your closed eyes. We just give our attention to something and let that simplify, distill out more and more of the meanings, the sense making, until there's less and less to say about the moment, but more and more urgency to know it deeply. our compulsion to extract something from the moment compromises our intimacy with it. And so there's a kind of receptivity, willingness to be softened by the moment. When we give ourselves the freedom of not needing to accumulate anything. We just keep surrendering in awareness with faith in Dharma. is a uh, researcher, psychologist, McAdams. We are the stories we live by, but we should not forget that there is no good story that is free of struggle and tension. There is no perfect life narrative, just as there is no perfect life. The Dharma is made of thoughts and arises when thought ceases. It's made of thoughts and arises when thought ceases. The Buddha has given us so many thoughts, so many useful ideas, decoding suffering with such brilliant distinctions and categories. And if you try to like parse experience, like what is experience? If you had asked me, Matthew, what's experience before I started practice, I would have made like some wild hand movements, and I don't know what I would have said, but it's confusing. It's very confusing. And so to begin to actually make some sense of it with brilliant distinctions, this is so useful. The path is about the most beautiful thoughts, like, is there an image that is more beautiful than metta, loving kindness pervading the entire world? And this path is about a deeply meaningful way of living, a way of living that makes life feel complete, a way of living where doubts about purpose, doubts about meaning really fall away. The Dharma answers our quest for meaning. And so the path is about meaning, and the path is about stepping out of thought, putting down all meaning, all compulsion to know and to make meaning. And there's a kind of dialectic between this meaning making and stepping out of the realm of meaning. So much of our thought has a kind of almost a defensive quality, like it's necessitated by fear. Our meaning making is necessitated by fear. Very innocent that it is such, actually. Some neuroscience, the organism's survival depends on high fidelity predictions. The computationally efficient solution to this problem is for the brain to prune its models, kind of somewhat akin to beliefs, to prune its models using prediction errors. By processing the difference between a model's predictions and sensory input, the organism can indirectly quantify the accuracy of its predictions and improve the models that generated them. An organism that does not aim to minimize prediction errors over time would not survive for long. Meaning making revolves around this kernel of fear, the need to know. We're contending with deep forces, just we're small creatures amidst big forces. And sometimes I'll see, just look at like a bird in on a branch, and so fragile, and like so many head movements, just looking everywhere, alert to sounds and movement, kind of like vigilance, you know. And we're vulnerable in some of the same ways, and the way to deal with that is to conceive, to make meaning. And we often come to practice drowning in meanings, so we don't even know how utterly spellbound by our models, our interpretations, the kind of house of cards of our views and opinions, our meanings. And when our thoughts feel real, our life feels surreal. When our thoughts feel really real, our life takes on a slightly surreal quality. There's a kind of alienation in it. And so Gill's concentric circles of like the most elaborate fantasies out in the kind of farthest circle, and we get closer and closer to here. The more intimate we get with experience, the less we perceive as being there, the less substantial life seems to feel. We make less and less meaning, and this compulsion to like always be saying something about experience, that starts to fall away. The compulsion to like talk about our life, to talk about this moment, to make meaning out of this bit of sense data, that starts to fade. And experience itself, when we're not making so much meaning, not conceiving in such dense ways, it starts to get thinner and thinner. Experience starts to get more and more run through with space. Questioner asked the Buddha, um, associated with what do appearances disappear? How do pleasure and pain disappear? Tell me this. I'm motivated to know how they disappear. The Buddha's response. Appearances disappear when not conceiving concepts, not conceiving false concepts, not non-conceiving, and not conceiving disappearance. This is because conceiving is the basis of conceptual differentiation. As the more elaborate structures of meaning making, of conceptual proliferation falls away, what is known gets quieter and quieter, less and less substantial. It's both more there and less there at the same time. The field becomes less and less differentiated. The lines we draw between this experience and that experience, between self and world, all of this gets more and more porous. And so we practice letting go of meaning and the need for meaning, letting go of the mind's desperate attempts to make conclusions, to land on a conclusion moment by moment. Sometimes I'll give the instruction in meditation like, come to no conclusions. Yeah. Don't be satiated by any conclusion. It's just another um, conceiving moment. And then from the silence and the stillness, from that, we make new meanings. Yeah, it's like we don't find our meaning in stories, but in the intimacy with experience. Like the building blocks of our stories is just this very intimate encounter with knowing in this really pared down, simple way. And so the building blocks of our stories don't come from da, 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 da. They come from this like encounter with experience. And we tell new stories about experience, new stories about who we are, new stories about what means what, new stories about goodness and new stories about what matters. And our autobiography becomes a Dharma story, a story of dukkha and delusion and clinging and release and love. And meaning and meaninglessness coexist. But the stories that come out of the intimacy of this experience, they're infused with space, They feel different than other stories. Yeah, we make meaning out of experience. We tell stories about who we are and what we're doing. We tell stories about the freedom of heart, but the urgency and entanglement with our stories, that starts to dissolve. We become more circumspect about our lives, our plans, all the meanings we make, the stories we tell. There is space everywhere. There is space everywhere, even as we live a committed life. Yeah. So meaning and meaninglessness, dialectic. I offer this for your consideration. And yeah, appreciate the chance to be with you today. May yeah, Dharma blessings rain down upon you today, and we'll regather 23 hours. So thank you.